alongside Asim, Juan, and Ryan Alquisto. And today we will be talking about community interaction with game developers. Specifically, we're going to focus on three main game developers because there's so much mold to go around. Um, and pretty much what's going to happen during the show is that now we have structure. Surprise. We're going to move towards the less scuffness of our podcast. Um, I hate it. I hate it as much as you, Juan. I hate it as much as you. So I think we're going to start off, I think, by talking about Riot. And the main companies, obviously, that we're going to focus on are Riot, Valve, and Blizzard. There's a lot of maul for Blizzard, so I'm going to save that to last. I personally have a lot of maul towards Blizzard. And I'm understanding of why they do certain things now compared to before, but it's still mauled. And I have to mauled, you know? But Riot, obviously, one of the biggest companies in in esports right now. Very interesting. Obviously, a very interesting company, very big company, has been involved in a lot of, has done a lot to help the community with collegiate League of Legends, Clash, etc., balancing and whatnot in terms of listening to the community about like, hey man, this is a very broken, busted hero or champion. And then being able to do much. But I think Juan is more qualified to mauld about anything that they've done or even praise them. Remember, we might be called the Mauldcast. However, we do sing praises and give credit where it's due. So Juan, if you want to take it away about Riot Games.
I mean, my premise to start off is that Riot has, a lot of people might not think about it, but they're a very data-driven company, at least when it comes to balancing. Obviously, the game design philosophy might not meet eye to eye with everyone, and I mean that happens. And at the end of the day, they have to make money somehow, right? So if that's a source of revenue for them, they're probably going to take it. But definitely the way they've balanced champions from when the game first came out to like how they balance it now is based more off like the info and the data they have and more numbers based, more supported by numbers, right? As well as when they balance something, they try and see the bigger picture from like average players to skilled to pro, right? Because we talked about it before how like some minute changes for like a certain champion might affect if they're even played at all. And even in other games where like some changes on like the walk accuracy, the running headshot accuracy, stuff like that even
Mm-hmm.
affects if the gun's even used, right? Like I'm gonna throw in Valorant for example, like all the class changes, everyone started using the frenzy, right? Or frenzy fire rate got nerfed.
The
Everyone
run
got
and
to
gun
using
changes, you
yeah.
mean?
Stinger,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Or
then
was it because of
also
the classic changes?
a lot of stuff. Like I'm just saying
It's
there's like
kind of
changes
compounding,
that
yeah.
happen. Yeah. Um this kind of happens in League 2, but it's like less extreme that people might see it because we were talking about it the last time where it was like, oh, just straight up everyone was tilting. But it was more like, oh, is this actually busted or do people think it's busted because that's what the champion's supposed to do, right? Like those things happen a lot
Yeah,
and
like the carry potential of the champion, you mean?
yeah, or like the snowball effect, sort of.
Ah,
Like,
gotcha.
oh, how does this character feel when he has two kills? Is he supposed to like if he's ahead, is that what he's supposed to do? Is he supposed to just one shot you? Compared to like, oh, is this a tank supposed to one shot an AD carry who's when he's like down bad like 0-12, right? So I think Riot does a good job of like communicating and kind of gathering information, but at the same time they kind of have their own design and the final say about it. Like, sure, they've reverted some changes. Like, obviously, trying to think off the top of my head. Obviously, Zoe, the when she came out, Aphelios, like the 7 billion times he got nerfed.
Ilaoi.
You, Alawi when she came out, Kaisa
Yeah.
too. Like they saw like what needed to be changed, and even then, like it became more of like, oh, it's a top down change over like, oh, this is like a problem, right? Because
Yeah, has been a champion with a like an inherent problem that they kind of figured out. I know that Nidalee people used to abuse Nidalee with like her like the old Nidalee. So like people wouldn't use her Jaguar form because it wasn't that great. In all honesty, it was good for like mobility, but it wasn't that great at like damage. So like people would just use like spear and play like sniper Nidalee, um, in like
That's
mid lane or top lane. You know,
that's sort of still like what happens, but that's a good count, like even like a good reference to like, yeah, sometimes they see that the champion's busted, but the data size doesn't like make it worth to change, right? Like it's like E, right? Everyone know E's busted.
APE. I'm just saying they need to bring back AP Master Yi. That shit was fun to play.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
a good example of it being like broken, but like overall not because the champion itself is broken. It's more of like how they were using it, right? Like top down, like people in bronze are like, oh, why do people in bronze play Yi? Because they don't know how to play against it. But further up the ladder, it's like they see a Yi and it's like, oh well, I know how to counterpick it, I know how to play against it. My team knows what to do again. Like he doesn't get the value he does from that, and Riot sees that. So like they cater to like all the players as best they can, obviously, because sometimes they miss, right? I mean, I don't expect them to always get it perfect. Like I expect them to mess up most of the time, but then fix it. Like I feel like that's how it is mostly in games now, with the feedback being very negative, because everyone has a voice now with Twitter, with like the forums, with even like the feedback reports you
don't
get.
even get me started on like the league content creators and their fucking drama, dude. Like, oh my god,
I think
that's so annoying. Like that just clutters up what people actually want to talk about, which is like, hey man, I hope the game improves, kind of deal. And then there's
something
like a bunch of like big personalities just molding at other things, you know?
something to kind of also add on to the stuff that you're saying about like Twitter or Reddit or forums or whatever is that I kind of feel like Riot like does a really good job of actually interacting with that side too, not just
Okay.
like within the game, but also just like they're on social media and a lot of times like I don't know if this is as much as the case with League. I'm assuming it is, but I know for Valorant, a lot of times like when a new patch is about to come out, someone one of the devs on Twitter is like, yeah, like some pro player will say something or some just random person, they'll be like, well, like we're looking into this right now, so like next patch expect this and this, and this is like our thought process behind why we're doing certain things, and Riot in
Right,
general,
right does that,
yeah,
and they kind of started that with like they used to, or the Riot devs always are on r/league, right?
yeah,
Or on that,
Yeah.
and that like obviously they're not on there as much now because the subreddit's blown up and
mm-hmm,
there's polarized views on everything.
mm-hmm,
But when something big happens, they'll drop like an AMA that sort of explains like what they were thinking. And
exactly,
Like that
Riot,
Wukong change.
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that time, like that short time period where like Wukong was busted as hell? Not because of the numbers,
which
but
one?
because of like
Yeah, because he got a stealth, he could reactivate his R. He could,
exactly
yeah. They when they reworked him, yeah, no, like
like
they did
doing
a
that, like they put in their thought process. But there was also the very famous meme of what is it, like 100 plus
200.
or
That was a
oh
failure. That
yeah,
was a
two
failure.
200 years came from that, which was so Riot during this whole like Wukong incident. I believe one of the Riot employees got kind of annoyed and instead went ahead and was like, "Hey man, I you got to realize that we have 200 plus years of collective game design experience," and I think that just blew up into a meme. Um, and like it's even said till today, like if anybody mods that league, it's just like, "Hey man, it's 20 years, 200 years by the way."
I mean, I feel like that's more of the human side coming out when people just like you work on something like you just kind of get bashed senselessly. Because yeah, like after the first 50th times you get retweeted that you're retarded. I mean, it's gonna like you're gonna feel some type of way. Yeah, I'm in something right now.
Go off to the maximum. Let's
Let's
go.
go. Um, but going back to like after like you've
Yeah.
been criticized like 50 times and you know it's wrong and like you try to like you kind of like put yourself out there, you kind of get frustrated because I think what Riot does well is like they find what the people are actually feeling over what the data is trying to tell them. Because like I feel like Aphelios obviously all the champions that come out are overpowered because they haven't been used, right? They don't have runes attached to them. They don't have items that boost them or give them like empowerment. So
Hmm.
on paper they seem fine, but sometimes they're just like too much. And
Yeah.
they do a good job of like, oh, Aphelios came out, we think it's really good. And he's a fun character. And then Twitter's like, what the fuck? Why is this rank shit fucking destroying everything in my games?
No,
That
Juan.
quote, that is directly from that's from Reddit. For legal reasons, that was a quote. You know, quote.
Yeah. Um, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon in terms of the league, um, damn, it was on like the tip of my tongue, but I believe it was like the whole um interaction regarding like affiliates and stuff, right? Like, and like this does tie into like what other developers have said, like in an interview, like so Jeff Kaplan, the lead developer, like one of the he's a VP of Blizzard right now. He's running the Overwatch development team. Um, so after BlizzCon Online, it happened like not this weekend, but the last weekend. What he said was that like you know what, it's actually tough to hear. It's like it's almost impossible to hear criticism and not feel like shit about it.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's like certain things that they have to like do, and like there's certain like um, kind of benchmarks that they have to hit in order for them and to be applicable to the whole player base. So like make like changing hitbox size, for example, for I believe for a few
yeah,
of the champions, they changed the not the hitboxes, but like the skill hitbox size. So like Nidalee Spear used to be like a log hitting you, but now it's actually like it's more functional as a spear, and like
yeah,
Zoe's like sleep used to hit you like a fucking like harder than a bulldozer, right? But then I think they
yeah,
changed it a little bit, as well as her like giant fucking like what was it, her arrow or some shit that she launches, one of her abilities.
Ash, Ash, right?
No. I'm
Or
talking about
Nidalee?
Zoe.
The
Oh, so
bubble.
yeah, no, her bubble used to be like
Yeah, the
I
bubble,
mean,
and
it
then
still
her other skill,
happens.
like her main damage source. I think it was like a Q or
Her
her.
The
Q,
missile.
yeah, her
Yeah,
paddle star,
The
yeah,
missile that you
yeah,
can
a
make
paddle
click.
star. Like the paddle star, I think they changed it a little bit so that wouldn't be as detrimental. And like that small change made like quality of life so much better in games.
yeah,
But one of the things that I do miss from League specifically is the old rune page thing, and they actually went through and like this is where I'm like Riot I think did a very good job in like transitioning because like previously back in like season 3 4 or something like that, like you had to buy runes, and then you had a mastery page that you could set in the middle of games, and then you had a rune page that you have to buy, and you'd like buy multiple rune pages and set like specific runes for it, right? Like
yeah,
you'd have like armor pen armor and stuff like that, but now they made it a lot more seamless, and I think that's because they want to reach a wider audience. Like they want to have like the like they want it to be accessible to beginners, like people who are
yeah.
like from level 1 all the way up to like 30 or
I
something.
think that's their main that was their main thought process when they switched. I mean, I started when the new root pages were already
Yeah, I started before that, so that's why I remember the old room pages where you had to like grind the game in order to buy, like have enough like. So it used to be influence points instead of blue essence, and
yeah. So
like we'd
you
use
like
that.
their IP to buy
Yeah.
like oh give me 10 more AD. Ryan's dad is photobombing us. Mess.
It's fine though.
We love it.
Um,
Oh,
But another thing I wanted to
it
point out
changes
oh,
the
you
is that
cameras,
got
I
him.
think.
Yeah, it does.
I
Oh
also
look, I'm
wanted to
Ryan,
oh
and
I'm
Ryan's awesome, and Juan's
Oh.
me.
I
Scuffed
like
cat.
Cast.
Wait,
Oh,
Ryan.
it's all awesome.
Ryan, instead of turning off your camera on Discord, turn off what do you call it? Um just turn off Droid Cam. That way like the names don't need to, change. But
We are experiencing some technical difficulties.
yeah.
no technical
That's what I did.
breakthroughs in our fields.
That's
Oh,
what
that's
I
like
fine.
did.
Then.
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
why it just kicked you out of. Like it showed your profile
Well,
picture instead. So
another thing that I enjoy from Riot is that even they communicate a lot of and they promote a lot of community interaction with things that aren't in game,
Yeah.
like the music. I mean, there was lore before, but like they
I
sort of
think they threw
communicate
lore
that.
out the window after like the first 5 champions
No,
were
I think
they did,
also
or something.
they did, but like they make it so like each character is broadcasted and like known as well as like the art stuff and the music stuff that
Oh yeah.
sort of people enjoy, like the cinematics, right? Like
hmm
Didn't
they put a lot of that and see like the feedback of that, and it's sort of way of communicating, interacting with the fan, with people who play the game, because like everyone's like, oh, the Warrior cinematic that came out like after they did Warriors or
Oh
something.
my god.
Everyone was
if
like,
I
oh, I want to play League
Like
now because
the finals
yeah,
song that they commission like art, like pop culture artists to do,
Mm-hmm.
and like when they pull it off, it's like, oh my god, it gets you hyped for the game. So like every time someone watched like the World Finals, because they'd have the live performance, as
I
soon
mean,
as the finals, like World Finals ended, everyone's like, dude, I want to play League right now. And I
I
think
think
that's kind of what they wanted to generate, right? It's they wanted
yeah,
to have something that says like, I want to play this game after
during
watching like pro play.
Worlds, yeah, like that's why like when people like during Worlds people play a lot more because it's like, bro, I see like this makes me feel hype. I want to play. It seems like a fun idea, but it never is. But it'd be that way.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say though is that compared to League, I think that the Valorant dev team does a really good job of like trying to address issues as fast as possible, as well
Mm.
as having community engagement since the beta. And I think that's because they learned from how it like went in
They
the early
are the
years in
same
League.
developers. They
I,
are
Yeah,
literally the same devs.
I think
And
some.
then
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Asim.
I
I was
was
going
gonna
to say
say,
like there's way less balancing between character interaction because
yeah.
instead of you clicking on someone, you're just shooting them in the head.
I think generally something to kind of note about Valorant is that a lot of times the devs when um this was kind of very prevalent in the beta, but a lot like in the beginning people thought that Jet was really bad, right? And then the devs are like, well, we don't really think she's that bad. We just think that like it's too early on, so people haven't don't really know how to play her. And then people are just like, no, she's bad. And then they gave her some minor buffs. I say minor, but they were pretty good, which was the smoke buff and then the dash through tripwires, right? And then at that point, Jet became like insanely good. And in pro play, she has an insane pick rate. She's always played with the op. People recognize like, oh, like dashing in is great for getting space, and that's stuff that the dev team had already communicated to us in the beginning, but we just didn't take their word for it. And
It was
the
also like I mean, finish.
but what I'm saying is that even after they reverted some of the buffs that they did to her, she's still very strong, and it just kind of goes to show you that like the dev team, like when they give us their insight, like sometimes we may not appreciate it, but there is a lot of truth behind it, right? Like another example is Sage, because after Sage got nerfed all this time, people are like, "Oh no, she's terrible now." But now recently we've been seeing how like good she can be in a lot of situations, and so I think the dev team is not really just saying stuff to cover their asses. Like when it comes to
yeah.
Valorant, they're actually providing like what like the specific like insight on why they take like certain balance decisions, and we might not like it right away, but like sometimes like it just gets proven over time.
It was like
Yeah.
it was like when the dev said that Raze's biggest strength wasn't her nades, it
Mm-hmm.
was her movement.
It was
Mm-hmm.
her
And
satchels, yeah. And
everyone's
everyone
like,
was like,
"Oh
what do you
no,
mean
that
satchels?"
doesn't
And
make
then some
sense."
kid
And
went
then
on and was like, "Wait a minute, let's try this." And then like satchel bomb like across of like across
yeah,
B side on
uh,
split, and like did like went on like a full flank and stuff like that. It's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And like even now they're finding like new ways to use the satchel. Like I don't think satchel has changed that much. Obviously, there's like some quality of life changes. Like it's not gonna like injure teammates now. It's gonna give him a knockback, sure, but it's not gonna like actually take health away from teammates. And like I believe it's a lot more fluid to use, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
Like
it
feels a
was.
lot more fluid
I
instead
forgot the
of
name of
like
the.
clunky.
I forgot the guy who like brought the like flight.
Flights, and then now
For
Doenmo in Korea.
yeah, like
Mhm.
flight who was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna start making these montages," and everyone's like, "Huh." I never realized you could just have a break and end up on top of arches on a set and get 2 kills because no one expects you there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then everyone was like, it was like after that happened because it was like when she got. I mean, obviously her 2 nades were kind of broken, but it was everyone's like, oh no, her nades is so easy. Like
I think the
people
biggest
didn't know
thing
how
that
to
I
play the
molded
game.
about,
People didn't know how to play the game, and
yeah,
her damage was a little overtuned. But
Mm-hmm.
how many times do you actually get a raise nade kill?
Yeah, I mean
Like in a
very rarely.
it
And
works to
like on top
clear.
of that, like the
Yeah.
old result as well
it
was like kind
works,
of
but
easy to build. I believe. I think it was like pretty cheap to build because you frag out
yeah,
a lot with like
that's.
satchels and nades and whatnot. So it was pretty like quick to build, maybe like 4 or 5
I mean,
rounds
I'm not saying it
tops.
wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't busted because it was like you'd get two for like 800, and then it
Hmm.
reset off 2 kills.
Yep.
So yeah, it was kind of broken, but everyone was like, "Oh, just a like spamming." Yeah, which is true, but like we didn't see
I
the
don't know.
potential of it.
I like
So
Reyes as she is now, where she relies more on yes mechanical aim, but also like on her satchel usage, not necessarily like oh I'm gonna throw a nade. It's more like I'm throwing a nade to clear a corner or clear an angle, right? Like if I'm walking through an angle and there's like two sides, I can throw a nade on the left side and then clear the right side on my own, because the person on the left side is probably gonna walk out and I'm gonna catch them, kind of
I mean,
deal.
yeah, and I mean they also take the community interaction. I mean, Riot as a whole took it really well when they're like, "Oh, why is this champion like doing so good at this?" And they're kind of just like, I mean, that's like the low skill way of using it. Everyone was like, wait a second, what do they mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are we not seeing?" And then everyone's like, like when Sage was super popular with her wall having full health at the beginning, like
Hmm.
all the raise wall, all the Sage wall retakes when Sage was played like infinitely on bind, right?
I don't
Hmm.
think really, but yeah.
Like, like when everyone ran over a Sage, all the Sage players were like, "Oh, I got counter walls. We can go vertical. We got one way." Like all that stuff was like, yeah, yes, we might think it's dumb, but it's because we're dumb and the devs actually have the information and the playtest to
Like they made the game, so they
yeah,
know
yeah,
exactly how
in
each
a
character
way.
works.
Obviously, they're good at knowing and understanding what the player base is feeling, right?
Hmm.
Like,
I think this is gonna make me sound like a simp for right, but I really like how like their dev team actually plays in very like it goes across the whole skill range, right? Like so there are people who are in the lower skill range, there are people who are in like the average skill range, and there are people who are in the
I,
upper bracket, which
I
is
think it
really
varies
good. Like
because
maybe not like a radiant level, but I still think like being
I
like
think
diamond, immortal, like that area is pretty good.
I think Riv is like D3 right now.
I
Yeah.
At least
I just I
past there.
I also think that's something to what do you call it? Like kind of elaborate on what you're saying, Poman, is that they don't try to make like they understand like the niches of like their balancing, right? So they don't try to make everything viable in every single situation. They understand that some things are going to be good in the low ranks just because that's how it is, and some things are going to be good in the high ranks because that's just how it is. And they're not trying to actually like force out like everything to be good for every single person in the community, right? It's that some people in the
Yeah.
community are going to like one thing and some people in the community are going to like another thing, and
Like all
making
of Reyna's kit, I think
yeah,
is a
I
very
mean,
good example.
but making things good for each of those communities like individually is what and like ends up working out,
Most of the time, because
yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
people don't people are like, I mean, happens in League a lot where it's like, oh, this isn't balanced, but it's
Hmm.
more of like, no, that's like how it's supposed to go. Like,
Hmm.
I
yes,
think one of
player versus
my
assassin is supposed like you're not supposed to win,
yeah,
right?
I don't know. I kind of want to know your thoughts on like the new character that's coming out. I don't know if Riot has released a statement on it, whether or
Sure.
not it's like
I
busted
don't
or
think
not. But like
They
people,
already
like
full.
big
There's already been
streamers
a
were
full
playtesting it,
release.
like people who had access to beta
There's already been a
and like have access to the beta servers
yeah,
were
the
like playtesting
PPE.
it. So like Shroud was streaming it earlier today with the new agent.
yeah.
And like her abilities just is kind of nice. Like it's
I mean,
interesting. It's like
I will.
She's
it's a new
definitely
set of
she's
abilities.
definitely gonna be a high elo.
Yeah, I will
Like
say this
play
is
this character was made for high elo. Like
they said okay. I will say one thing I don't like that Riot did like very recently is that so before this character came out they were like hinting at it as like, oh, it's gonna be like a galaxy brain controller, like everyone knew it was gonna be like a space themed smoke character, right? And then one of the things that they said was that the previous characters where they kind of aimed to shake up the meta, and that didn't really happen, which I thought was good because I felt like all the new characters still technically had a place. It's just that they weren't instantly viable. But
Situational. It was
with this
map dependent
character,
and situational.
yeah, but with this character, they said that their specific aim was to make this character meta changing, which I'm not a fan of. Right? I hope this character isn't just like completely busted. We have to see because a lot of times, like in Valorant specifically, a lot of the characters, like for example, when I saw Sky, I thought Sky was going to be overpowered, but she was fair. She was really balanced. But when they show these characters look insanely good, and then we get them and they're like they actually thought about the counterplay a lot. But I just hope that Astra isn't one of those characters where they like kind of forego a little bit of that counterplay just to try to what do you call it, shake up the meta. So
Yeah.
I mean, the counterplay is that she is your utility.
Essentially,
Yeah,
yeah. She
But I
like
haven't
she's
looked
a utility
too
bot.
deep into
like,
Astra,
oh,
so I can't make
yeah.
a
So
comment on like my opinion or anything.
so
Mhm.
Just
think
like
about he puts Jin first, well, but she can put them wherever she wants, but she
Right.
can't take them back. And
No, she can't take him back.
She has
She can't. She can't take him back. And every time she takes him back, they pop as a smoke.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I guess.
okay,
I
wait a
mean-
minute. That sounds a little weird.
Yeah. So
I
so
mean, I don't.
so this isn't you know, a Valorant podcast, but just to quickly explain, when she has 5 stars, she can place them wherever she wants on the map from wherever she is on the map, and she had unlike any other Valorant character who gets one ability for free, she gets all of her abilities for free. She just has to buy those stars. So she gets 2 stars for free, and then she can buy the 3 others, right? But essentially, you pick what you want to do with the stars with the ability, and then if you want to take the star back, it pops as a smoke, which is already an ability in itself. But when you pop it as a smoke, it's only for like 5 seconds max, right? And then it just comes back to you. As for actually not even 5 seconds, like 2 seconds or something like that. And so you like that's just a quick summary of her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I get
it's a fake.
Yeah.
It's like a fake smoke.
Yeah. You only get it
Got
for
it,
2
got it,
seconds.
got it.
You only get it for 2. It pops up for 2 seconds, and then you get the star back.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
that's
that's fine.
fair, but like, it's not like.
I don't know
think
the way that they
main
interacted, like
goal.
what you said, Awesome. I think is like the key point that you're trying to make, which is, I think that's like a point of wording, right? Like as a player, as part of the community, if the community has like a big backlash against it, and they're like, we intended it for it to be meta changing, right?
Yeah.
And
I
it
don't think
is, and it's in a way because meta changing in a good way, meta changing in a bad way, which is like it seems
Yeah,
very busted
I
or
mean,
something.
I will say
So,
I
like
don't think I think it'll be like the rich get richer sort of deal
Yeah.
where like if you have insane game sense, this character is for you. Like
yeah, I agree.
you just, it's like when Omen was getting really big and like Greninja and
Greninja.
all those players
Oh
were
yeah.
like
Flex Ninja, you mean?
Flex. Oh my god,
Greninja.
Greninja. We're not talking about Smash here, bro.
It'll forever stay Greninja. I'm sorry. When he was just like smirking at people because no one really
Yeah.
thought of like I could teleport behind you. Nani?
Smile.
Like
Yeah.
teleports behind you, gets an ace. Like it's gonna be like that until people realize like until everyone catches up. But it'll be like it'll work if you don't know how to play her and she'll do her job. But like definitely I see the top player base being frustrated because it's like, oh, just because this like concusses me, yeah, I lose. Right?
I will say like overall the smoke
It'll
itself
feel
is
frustrating, definitely.
yeah, the smoke itself is fine. My biggest concern is just the fact that they added a black hole, so like a Zarya grav, and then a concussion, which is pretty frustrating to have. But I guess we'll play and see. You know, also something I kind of want to also bring up about Riot themselves is that they're actually very good with like the whole communication aspect and actually interacting with the community, but they're actually pretty bad about like actually opening their like tools up to the community, you know? So like
What do you mean by that? Like
so
tools?
so
it
like
like-
there's no
either
map
thing
like if you
or-
take the Valorant example, there's no map editor, right? Like they just do not want you actually like, you know, making your own maps or anything.
I mean, practice tool took
Y-
8 years.
Yeah, exactly. They it's very closed source, right? Like there's nothing really open source.
Even
And
releasing the API took them forever.
yeah, and like it's literally the opposite of Valve, right? Because Valve is like they don't really talk to the community, but like if you want to do anything, they'll just let you do it, you know?
Yep, that's sort of like my like
Right.
just to finish on
I don't know.
Riot.
I don't know if we have like any closing comments on Riot because I kind of want to move on to our
I
next
feel like Riot has a
good old game developer, but
they have a good two-way street. They communicate
Yeah.
effectively and bridge the gap between the info they have and the feelings that everyone has in a particular thing that happens in the game. Sometimes they'll be strong-headed and like double down. Sometimes they'll be like, "That's kind of fun." And then
what I'll say though is that we're essentially right now simping for Riot. So Riot, if you could please reach out to us, we'd love to do some kind of partnership with you.
As long
Maybe
as
even
you
like
want me to
sponsor
carry.
our teams and whatnot. You know, I'm just saying, like,
Buff AD carry.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that you'd be
Buff
you
80
have been
carry.
mulling about, and a bunch of my friends and I have mulled about it as well. Like
Buff
80 carry just feels fucking lacking, and I don't know why Riot hasn't like given me anything about it because I like
personally,
to play ADC, but it feels so shit right now.
personally, just buff Vayne, buff Caitlyn, buff Varus. That's fine. I'll get to play the game.
That's your hero pool, man. That's literally your champion pool.
No, just buff all your carries. You know, I want to be 1-0
Here's
and
the thing: I don't want 80 carries to be like running the game, but I also don't want them to be utter dog shit where you can replace them with literally anybody else. Like you can replace them with like a double support bot lane, you know. But that's like a whole balancing thing. But it's still ass. Riot, please. We
Have
simp
you
for you
got
hard enough, but we deserve an answer.
have you
Let
gone
us
against the
know.
1-0 Yasuo? Have you gone against the 1-0 Assassin?
I'll be right back.
Oriana with 20 CS lead feels like unkillable in the right hand. Like, you know, why can't an 80 carry with a 1-0 lead just like that
Hey,
look?
80 carries are more ramp up. So like that's a different topic that we can discuss later on. But I think overall, Riot does a good job, but they also have made their mistakes in the past, and that's because of like I think the way they think about it and the way that the community perceives it is different. In terms of like the whole reporting thing, I think that's like one of the big things for like any game is that if you're able to go to a developer or like a game developer and be like, hey man, I have this problem that's been happening and it doesn't seem like it's working that well. Like you then go like, and then they come back and they say like, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. It's actually as intended. Like that's really frustrating for me, and that's happened to me before. With the Riot, it was like it wasn't even like scripting. Like it wasn't even scripting. It was just like the amount of like abusive people
What?
in the community, right? And I'm like,
For what happened?
I was just like I get frustrated when like someone on my team's toxic and runs it down mid, like the old Tyler One treatment, you know, like literally AFK as soon as like first blood's given away or something like that, and like it's so winnable.
I think that's a whole different problem in itself.
Like the communication between like the community and that, like I think it's more on fault with the community and not being able to express what they actually want to do. You
It's
know?
I think it's a whole other intrinsic problem that Riot has to communicate with people who are influential in the community, streamers obviously, because everyone just sees these streamers who play a lot, who are very good, obviously, see how they treat others, right? When like 50% of the time you're supposed to lose anyway, right? Just absolutely put like they're put on a pedestal, right? But not really. Like Riot's all like, no, we want PMA, we want people to bring each other up. But you see these streamers who are like not, and it's like, ah, damn,
Yeah.
right, what are you gonna do about this? It's like, and it's a very intrinsic problem because if they say like, hey, you can't do this, or they put a or slap someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like slap them on the wrist, they're like, oh, bad Yasuo, bad Tyler One, bad Trick 2G, bad Jin, you know, bad Taco. Whoever's playing, whoever's doing that, I'm not saying they're toxic. It's more of like, oh, well, you got a long list of people who just play for fun, and that's how they get enjoyment out of it. And it's like, oh, what if you just ban those players? Nah, like Riot's gonna lose money. They make more money by like people playing again and flaming, and you know their reoccurring customers happen. So I don't know. It's a whole different problem for a whole different thing.
I think that's a kind of a good segue to kind of contrast that with like the good that Riot has done. And I think the next company that we kind of want to talk about is Valve, mainly because there's
Ye-
like a big Dota 2 community as well as like a Counter Strike community and whatnot.
Yeah, I think kind of.
And that's our like resident Valve. I wouldn't say expert, but like our Valve like player consistently playing consistently. Like it's Juan and Ryan playing two different Valve games, at least at a multiplayer level, right? Dota 2 and Counter Strike respectively. So
I played two Valve games, good sir. I played a lot of TF2 back in the day. That's
oh
how I
yeah,
got
that's
into
too.
gaming. Actually, was through the Orange Box.
Hmm.
Like those were some of the games I grew up with. I
So
mean,
what are your thoughts on how Valve interacts with this with its community, and like does it do it well? If so, why do you think it does well? And if not, like what are some examples of like bad community interactions either you've seen or have like kind of dealt with?
I mean, well, it depends in terms of giving tools and venues for the community to do whatever it pleases. Valve is historically good at that, giving the tools for the community to do whatever they want with their games, being very open source and bot friendly. There have been a lot of source mods that are on Steam, like based on the source engine that were
Mm-hmm.
given to us by the community, and some of them went on to become like fully fledged games. Like, and they've also had a track record of bringing in players from the community and hiring them to work on games. That's how we got games like Left 4 Dead and Portal.
Oh, is that
Being
how
like
they
huge
came
games.
about?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's very nice.
you also have a lot of things that were made by the community that become official. Like TF2 is a good track record of this, where they've
Mm-hmm.
had like community updates that were pushed out officially by Valve that were made exclusively by members of the community, and they've
Mm-hmm.
added like maps and weapons and whatnot that were community made as official maps and weapons and official
I
updates.
see.
And they still do this. Like the latest Left 4 Dead update, which was The Last Stand, but like this past September, was the first Left 4 Dead community update, and they added like 26 whole new survival maps, scavenger arenas. They had a multitude of achievements, and they even added like 2 mutations, which is kind of like variations of the Left 4 Dead gameplay loop, where there's like additions, like modifiers and whatnot. And they've also given access to the community the tool that they use for making their cinematics, which is the Source Filmmaker, and they've allowed people to tinker with that. Their previous engine SDK is open for people to use. They
Mm-hmm.
have not expressed interest as of late to release a Source 2 SDK though. So that
Mm.
so in terms of giving the community tools, are really good. But in terms of communication, however, the Valve has a history of being like very laissez-faire, almost to a fault,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they have a phobia of public communications.
that's what I
But
was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish up.
you first.
Oh, I was gonna
Oh,
say
you-
that's what I was kind of trying to get at when I was talking about like right earlier, is that Valve in general does not actually talk to their community a lot, right? They like especially with CS:GO, like there's like that whole meme where like whenever Gaben says CS:GO, like the community is just like, oh my god, he knows we exist, right? Like because they don't really talk to the community that much. Like sometimes like
Didn't he
they'll
come
give
out during one of the masters for
for majors,
like
yeah.
IEM, like the
Yeah,
majors?
but I mean, it's still a lot less than they talk about Dota, for example. But like the point that I'm trying to get at is what do you call it? So a lot of times like it's a one-way street, right? Like they'll tell the community something, but it's not that like they might be listening to the community, but they're not really acknowledging the community that much. That being said, it's a lot of it also has to do with the fact that they kind of want the community to be self-sufficient, right? So their whole idea is like, oh, you don't like a map or you want to make a map, you can because we gave you the tools. And you know, like if it
and
is
it's popular
popular,
enough.
yeah, if it's popular enough in the community, we'll just put it in because you know, like you guys obviously like something, so we might as well just do it. But are they gonna like talk a lot about like certain things? Like, are they gonna be like, oh, like this is the reason? Like we're thinking about nerfing the op. Like, what do you guys think about it? Like, is there really a reason for us to do it? They won't really do that. They'll just be like, you know what, we're nerfing the op, whether or not you like it. Here it is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just an
Yeah,
example. Yeah.
I also
The,
think
the
like
community is exclusively what's keeping TF2 afloat
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as a
Yeah,
game.
yeah, that's very true.
I also feel like the games Valve put out are very much a very complete product. Like Counter-Strike really doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
changes are the maps.
Yeah.
TF2, I guess the hats and the modifiers made it change a little more, but in the end it
Well,
becomes like more of
TF2 is
like
not
how
a
you
whole.
play. Yeah. No, it's
Like
not a whole, but like
that's what they officially said, because they can't really afford to say that the game is dead, even if it technically isn't. It's shelved, which means like
yeah,
the hope that it will get like big
released.
updates
Yeah.
and attention is
Yeah.
still there, but they're not officially working on anything for the game.
I was-
They're not actively looking at
Yeah.
I was
things
just
for the
like
game,
the point I was
right?
trying to make is like, oh, TF2 came out. That's sort of like what you get, and they kind of thought about everything that could make it be like, oh, we need to maintain this, right?
Hmm.
Counter-Strike, the gun really hasn't changed that much. Like, like everyone's like, oh well, now I can't Ferrari peek with my op because I move slower.
They did add Warzone though.
Dang. Yeah. So like, I feel like the stuff they release, at least multiplayer wise, maybe with the exception of Dota 2.
I mean, the thing with Dota 2 to also keep in mind is that it's very hard to be very hands off with a game that's like constantly adding. Well, actually,
Yeah.
Dota 2, like they're not only adding characters, but because of how character interactions work, is that some people are just going to find certain things, and it's just gonna work out, right? Like TF2 has characters, but the characters are very I wouldn't say
Relying on the class.
yeah,
The
There's
classes are
Yeah.
like significantly different from one another, and
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the classes themselves aren't really going to change. Very rarely will the class itself change in some way. I think the last time like a class was changed in a significant way was the Scout.
Yeah, and also like they're not adding characters, and
They're adding
there's
weapons.
and there's not a lot of
Weapons
characters.
types.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and there's not a lot of characters, so like it's easier for them to now focus on a game like CS or what do you call
TF2.
it? TF2 that much when it comes to like the balancing stuff, right? Because I think that they've gotten a lot of the basic stuff down, like the fundamental stuff about the game. They've gotten that down. They don't really want to touch it, but with Dota, a game like that, you need to add more characters over time, and you need to keep balancing those characters. And people are just going to find character interactions, so you're going to need to keep balancing stuff like that. And like the community will still be involved in some way when they make stuff, but like they're still going to need to balance it. But yeah, sorry.
I think one of the best examples of that is with the international, like Ryan has mentioned before, right? Like how the community actually kind of drives the prize pool for the international or makes up part of the prize pool for the international. I think that's like a big thing in terms of game developers and community interaction. I don't know if that's kind of correct to say that, Ryan, but
It's very much true because of the way that the battle pass is and how 25% of all the money that players spend gets contributed to the international prize pool. And it's always ends up being more than it is last year because players always have like an incentive to spend more money because they keep on adding so much shit to it.
dude, the cosmetics are good, all right? The cosmetics are
They're
good.
really good. I think the ones for this past battle pass, even though there wasn't TI in 2020, which was sad.
I
They were
hope they
really
take
good.
that and like make it a bigger TI,
Yeah,
and like fund more tournaments or
it's gonna
whatnot.
be going into this year's prize pool, is what they said. Although I would have preferred if they had just spanned it across the DPC, like all the majors and minors and whatnot, especially so that players get like a consistent funding.
Yeah, source of income.
I personally would have preferred that, but like, what can you do? I'm not Valve. I can't make that decision.
Fair
I will
enough.
I would like to say though that Valve has been acting out of character to an extent for a little over a year now in terms of being afraid of public communication. And
Why is that?
why
Could you give like an example of like what
well
they did before and compared to now?
there's a whole thing with it. Do you guys remember when Half-Life Alyx was first announced?
Ooh,
Oh,
First Half-Life game Valve has made in over a decade. It's that's the
Mhm.
first change in Valve in last year is that they finally started working on video games again. Obviously, but that's not like the 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 rhetoric behind what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's more going on behind the scenes and publicly that wasn't the norm for Valve in recent times. So Half-Life Alyx, they had a trailer, and for the longest time, the dev team behind the game thought that all they had to do was just drop the game on Steam without any fanfare, and one of the largest game advertisement platforms, Steam, would just take care of the rest.
Also,
However,
oh sorry, go
and
ahead.
thankfully, someone at Valve saw the value in creating a trailer and hyping up that trailer a few days prior, then released a video with gameplay footage that garnered millions of views, and their VR headset, the Index, skyrocketed in demand, and they couldn't keep up with it for a while.
Also, another thing to someone in the same vein, but there was also that game Artifact, right?
Hmm.
And that game they showed off at TI. Didn't really get a lot of good feedback at the time, but they were hyping it up, saying that they got like I think the person that worked on Magic the Gathering to also work on the game, right?
the guy that made Magic the Gathering
Yeah,
made Artifact,
and
and he's been like for the past year has been working behind the scenes to basically redesign the game.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that they dropped the game and then that was that, right? Like I
They dropped
don't.
the game and they came out it's like with an entire blog that's like, yeah, we fucked up and we're going to like take some time to look back at like what went wrong and just rebuild the game from the ground up.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you don't really hear Valve say any like. That's like the only thing that I can really think about that Valve has ever actually said about the game since post-release, right? Because ever since they actually released the game, it's just like they forget. Sometimes I felt like they forget that game exists, and then there's a backlash that the game is just like basically dead, and then they say like, yeah, we know, we're working on it, and then that's really it.
You can say that about Underlords now, since the
Oh
last
yeah,
time they actually
yeah,
had a
that
it
too.
was like
Oh yeah, auto chess.
like Artifact still they've been talking about it. It's just like not many people are really paying attention because it already
Right.
had like a very small player base. Like
That's
there's only
fair.
like 20 concurrent players right now. It's like a
That's
really
fair, yeah.
dedicated player.
So what's Artifact again? Because I've never heard of
It's
it.
a card game.
It's the Dota card game.
The Dota card
Yeah.
game, similar to
Yeah.
Legends of Runeterra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's kind of
But
like
yeah.
that.
But yeah, as I was saying, is like something changed in Valve to make them less afraid of communication, and people that play their games have become more open to communication from Valve. Like folks used to claim that if Valve was publicly communicating about their projects, that they'd pollute the communication of the communities, because Valve likes to lurk and look around at what everybody is talking about in relation to them, so that they're able to collect data on what the community wants.
They're like the secret spies and agents that you see,
Yeah.
gathering info from the foreign country of the community.
Yeah, it's been a long held belief in the Valve community that if a Valve employee participates in these conversations, that everybody would try to be on their best behavior and the information that they try to collect wouldn't be as accurate as if they were just be lurking. But at the same time, it's fairly well known that there have been a few major figureheads involved that were essentially gatekeeping all external communication, attempting to keep employees off the social media platforms and even considering their personal lives and never taking questions or answering any emails or taking interviews unless it's time to actually talk about a product. And I'd say this has changed since they announced Half-Life Alyx. Because the people who've been gatekeeping this information, whoever they are, seem to be losing strength. And Valve has become a lot more communicative than they usually are for the past year. I can't speak much for CSGO since I don't pay much attention to it, but I do know that they were active for a while, like teasing future updates, like taking community questions on occasion, and even memeing with some of the figureheads in the CSGO community.
I think
and they also got a hold of at CSGO and verified the Twitter account. And earlier today, I saw that they had just updated the avatar and banner with some memey shitty art by one of the artists in the community, and apparently the dude that runs the CSGO Twitter account commissioned it, and that's why it's the avatar and banner.
Something to note about CS:GO too is that, like this is like the obvious point, but ever since Valorant has been released, CS:GO has had some actual competition, right? And so I think previously Valve was just kind of complacent about certain things, and now for them it's just like, well, like there's this whole other game that's targets the same demographic as us, and now the community is going to actually be fed up with our BS because they see another developer doing the same thing that we are, but they're actually constantly adding things, and so Valve is actually pressured to start working on CS more, and you can kind of see that trend because they've been working on it more ever since Valorant has been released. Like that's just a simple fact,
same thing
right?
with them, like refining features for Steam ever since like the Epic's game launch.
Yeah,
came into
exactly,
play.
exactly.
And you first finish.
I was just saying, like, it just feels like a lot of times, like, Valve is just very complacent about things, and then when finally some competitor actually shows up, they're like, oh shit, like, we actually gotta start, like, doing things, And I don't know how that, like, how much that holds true for a game like Dota, because I think the release timeline for Dota and League were like very close to each other, so they've always been competing with each other, which also could be the reason that Dota has always gotten such community support from Valve. But That's
I have a question. Is the international and the League of Legends World Championship around the
No,
same time?
no. TI
No,
is in
right?
Oh no, but
January.
what I'm saying is that Dota, League of Legends, and Dota have existed for like their
They've
life
come,
Yeah,
their
I get what
lifetimes
you mean. I
together.
get what you
Yeah,
mean. I'm just
yeah.
wondering that because that could also influence like how much they see each other as a competition, right? If they don't see each other as a competition,
I
they
don't,
would have both
I don't,
events kind of
I don't,
happen
I
at the
don't,
same time. But
I
because
don't.
they don't, I think they see each other more as a competition. You're right, awesome, with what you were saying.
I think in terms of esports, like yeah, League is more franchised now and more consistent scheduling. Like yeah, their season is basically like February to October, right? October is basically like when off season starts for most of the teams, right? With like different regions having different schedules, like one of the small regions. I
Hmm.
think TI is what in June,
TI
Ryan?
is in August.
It's in
Yeah.
August.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually before before
It's
like
it's in like
summer
mid.
ends.
It's like mid to late August.
Hmm.
Usually like
Is the
in the
Dota 2 season
23rd.
just shorter than than the League one? Because the League has like it's like year round. Like you have like play in tournament, LCS, spring, then you
I
have
mean, you
MSI,
have
then
everything
you have
throughout the
All
year
Stars.
leading up to the international as well. All the majors and minors, everything that's
Okay.
happening throughout the year, it all leads up to the international,
It's
because
just
that's
in
where the
a
most money is, and
tournament format instead of league format, right?
that's what the Dota Pro circuit is.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's pretty much everything that isn't the international leading up to the international. And also, like I mentioned Steam before, because they've also been like very active, not only hyping up future updates to Steam as a whole through things like Steam Labs and the Steam Beta client, but also communicating about all upcoming features, game sales, and events on their Twitter account. And they got a hold of that Steam handle and verified it like in mid 2019. And you couple all of that with the creation of an official verified Valve Software Twitter back in June of 2019 at Valve Software, and their behavior from pre 2019 to post 2019, or I guess easier ways to phrase it is pre Half-Life Alex and post Half-Life Alex is night and day. So what happened? Like who done did it at Valve to like make them more talkative? You can't really contribute it to like one sole person, but
Oh no, he's brought it out. Oh god, get the tinfoil hats out, boys. It's here.
I'm gonna try to credit somebody anyway. Do you guys know who Casey Aitchison is?
What did I just come back to?
For the
No,
hat.
I'm
What?
telling you,
I'm
it's
getting the
time for the
tinfoil hat on.
conspiracy theories,
That I
boys.
came back to an alternate universe. What?
Yeah,
I got the
it's time for the
tinfoil hat
conspiracy
on.
theories.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, but
Juan has his hood up.
do you guys know who Casey Aitchison is?
No, I do not.
Okay, so if you've watched any Dota 2 International, then you've probably seen or heard of Casey. She's been co-hosting the International since like for years, like since the first one, and lots of people in Dota like her. Valve likes her. She even got hired as a full-time employee for the Steam business development team, which is essentially Valve's PR arm, but just for Steam. But here's the thing, she's done far, far more than what she was hired for at Valve. For instance, like not many people know this, but there's an official Valve press email that emails all major journalists on its mailing list with updates to events, press releases, media kits, and whatnot. And I only know of this because of a gaming journalist that I've been watching for years, Tyler McVicker, who covers Valve a majority of time. He's on their mailing list, and he's talked about in a couple of his videos how just typically unhelpful that it is. And like the info I'm about to give you, like regarding this, I got from his video, so I'm citing him on this. He's mentioned that they're always late for they're always like late in sending their emails for people that actually pay attention to them, and there is no form of communication past the press release. The press email has been historically run by a guy named Doug Lombardi, who is the vice president of marketing in Valve. And fun fact, it's actually Doug Lombardi's own personal email account that's used as the press email officially. That's how scuffed it is. But that was until Half-Life Alyx was announced, and the press email that announced the game was signed by Casey, not Doug. And not only that, but Casey put contact info after her own name in the email, and she reportedly responds to inquiries that people send to her. So what I'm speculating is that there is a direct correlation between Casey being hired at Valve as a full-time employee and Valve deciding to actually run a trailer for one of the most highly anticipated games of the last 2 decades. At the same time, they opened an officially verified Twitter account at the same time that Valve employees immediately became active on social media and Twitter. Like when Half-Life Alyx became legit, dozens of Valve employees just they were finally allowed to get out of their dungeon cells and talk about their time at Valve, and some Valve artists even started sharing their own personal art completely separate from the official game, taking place in the Half-Life universe. And you had ex-Valve employees that have worked there for decades that were completely in shock because some of them were even went out and saying that this kind of shit of like Valve employees like going out and talking about their days and whatnot was actively discouraged during their time in Valve, and that they're glad that things are finally changing.
It's kind of
So
like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how they're like, you can't say shit about what we're doing
yeah,
until we tell you to. And I feel like Valve kind of just did that.
yeah, there's like a one tweet by a guy named Matt T. Wood who is an ex-Valve employee. He worked there for like 2 decades. And in his tweet, he says, and I quote, "It's so crazy for me to see so many Valve employees active on social media right now. It was actively discouraged for so long. I'm glad things are changing." So, so Casey had to have she's had affected Valve in a very positive way. But
So what I'm hearing is, Ryan, instead of praising Gaben, all should praise Casey now?
you praise Gaben with your wallet.
You praise Casey with your forum posts.
Yes, you praise
You
Casey.
reach
I see. That makes so much more sense now.
But will this continue for the foreseeable future? Who knows? Need to take it off.
Wow,
otherwise-
Ryan, I don't know where you went. Some
Jeez.
weird guy with a tinfoil hat just came by and just started talking about this person called Casey from Valve. I don't know what that was about, but
Who?
I don't know, some random dude. He looked just like you, but had like tinfoil for hair instead.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I think that kind of sums up Valve in general and like how it's made improvements and strides in its own weird way, even the conspiracy theorists' way. And now I'm a little bit more inclined to believe it, mainly because I love conspiracy theories like that one, and it's hilarious. Also because of the tinfoil hat man, haired man who just walked in,
But yeah,
taking over Ryan's cam.
in all seriousness, though, if anyone is interested in learning more about like keeping up with all things Valve, I would highly recommend Tyler McVicker as the go-to journalist. He makes a lot of good content regarding Valve and whatnot, like how they are currently working on a new game behind the scenes, no IP called Citadel, as well as something potentially pertaining to Left 4 Dead. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And there you have it. There's a little bit of a shout out to that person as well. Please get in contact with us because I think that we could do some great work here from the Mallcast crew. You know,
I gotta get as many.
that is
shows
all a
as
meme, by the way. Please don't actually think that we're like dead serious about the whole getting in contact with us. I mean, we'd appreciate it, and we'll talk about it in a professional manner. But like, I'm saying it now because it's a full blown fucking meme that I'm
sponsor
making.
us.
Exactly, sponsor us, Mr. Journalist Man. Anyway, yeah. Now we go on to the big guns. The one where Juan falls the fuck to bed. Where Juan falls out of frame into another dimension. He goes to the Upside Down just for this, and it's my favorite company. It's the only company that whose game I've been dedicated to for the past 5 fucking years, and the company that has infuriated me
For 5 fucking years.
consistently for 5 fucking years.
But they
And
then
also manage WoW.
And it seems like managers WoW, and you know what that is? That is
Activision.
Blizzard. No, not Activision.
Well, I mean, it is
Activision.
Activision, yeah.
It's Activision
it's,
Blizzard, but yes.
It's the Clash of
I have a
Clans
lot of
developers.
mold here, specifically because so recently, and I really mean recently, like a couple weeks ago, I was playing competitive, and there was this bug in the game which caused people to just disconnect from the game. And it wasn't as though it was like a forced disconnect. It was more so it was an error on the server side. And so what I did was I went and made like a ticket, and like a bunch of us had like the same thing happen to us. We're like, oh my god, we're getting disconnected from the game, and you can't reconnect. Right? They literally kick us from the game and say it's a server error, but then the game would still continue. So you know how there's certain times in Overwatch where you'd have like a unexpected server error caused the server to shut down and game is canceled kind of thing. That didn't happen. It would happen to one person and they get kicked down and they'll just move on. And so I submitted a ticket to Blizzard, like through Blizzard forums, like directly to Blizzard. Like I submitted a ticket, and you know what their fucking response was? It's nothing to do with our servers. It is because you disconnected, and that's why we're giving you a minus 50 SR. And I'm like, bro, I don't. What? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm losing more SR for playing a 5v6. You know, I'm playing like a person down or 2 people down, and I'm losing more SR. And they're like, yeah, it's meant to be that way. It's meant to be more punishing for the team. And I'm like, that's not how it works, people. Come on, bro. I need you to like think about it.
I mean,
Whoever the employee is, Blizzard employee, understand my plight.
the thing
I
is,
just want to have a game where I don't get disconnected because of an error in the server. If it's my problem, I will know about it. But it wasn't my problem because I could do a lot of other shit which involves the internet. It's like, what the fuck?
the thing is with that case in particular is that although I do agree, sometimes Blizzard is like the type of company that like they kind of listen to people and then they're like, yeah, but like we're just not gonna do anything about it really. Like,
Good old stuck in their ways. Let's go for last week's episode.
I understand Blizzard is kind of like that, but also like when you're speaking to a customer support rep, like they're not a developer. They really just don't. They're just saying the stuff that like
I know
is like in their protocol.
It's so annoying.
Yeah,
And
but
the worst thing is though, so there's a couple scenarios where like community interaction with Blizzard has been abysmal. So for example, there was one where big Overwatch streamers were streaming the game, right? They were in competitive and they found a hacker, and what ended up happening is that the hacker got banned mid-game. And then there are people who are like in normal like SR, like way lower, like not in Grandmaster, like in the average SR brackets, and there's cheaters there, and you know what we have to do? We have to fucking live through it. We have to play out the whole game because nobody wants to take a minus 50 SR by dipping. And we kind of have to just live with playing against a cheater. It's just going to be a faster game because we'll lose faster, but we also lose the fun in the game, the competitiveness. And like that level of interaction is just like kind of bad because like we've asked for like a proper anti-cheat at Blizzard, and Blizzard has always been like, no, we want to do like the whole privacy thing or protect people's privacy, which is understandable, right?
okay,
but like, please, when we report someone, act on it. Like, you don't need a certain number of reports. And I think it's just like, then it becomes an issue of like, oh, there could be false reporting and non-false reporting.
There's something.
There's just like a whole bag of worms.
There's something to clarify though, because they can't do that. The reason that they don't act on reports right away for cheaters is because if they do it for each individual case, it gives the hack, like, you know, the companies that make these hacks, it gives them like an insight onto what like type of things are being caught, and it just helps them make the cheats better, right? And so I understand that like the hacks, like, what do you call it? Like when you report someone for hacking, it's frustrating when they don't get reported right away. But when it comes to hackers, you have to do ban waves, because if you don't do ban waves, they're like the cheat makers are just gonna know like, oh, like this is why they caught us. So then they're just gonna like fix that right away and then just re-release it, you know?
Here's the thing, right? For me, I don't think, in my experience, it hasn't been like cheat waves. It's always been like a 24-hour, 48-hour period until they get banned because they're reviewing the case. I understand that, but like, why do streamers get the treatment of immediate bans.
Well,
Like
with a
yeah, it's true, but like it's like come on, that's like a fact of the game is that it does allow for people to cheat. Like you can get to a really high rank level, whatever, and like they get immediately banned. It's just gonna give the hackers more insight, wouldn't it?
well, yeah. If Blizzard were to immediately ban someone any time that like a hack was detected or a hack was reported, then the cheat makers are just going to be like, well, so let's just say this, right? There's 5 different cheats, right? And the ones that are using a specific cheat always get reported instantly, meaning that the cheat makers know, oh, this cheat is being detected instantly, so we know exactly what we need to work on, right? But if you wait, like let's just say you wait like 2 weeks, right? And you ban everyone that was using all 5 of those cheats, then cheat makers don't know which of those 5 cheats were the ones that were giving them away. And so that's why ban waves do exist.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not gonna bother to like spend all the time and effort to look through each and every individual person that was banned in a
Yeah.
ban wave to try to diagnose
It
what got banned.
just must be my fucking luck and timing that every time I've reported someone and the person has either gotten banned or has had action taken against them, it's during like the end of the like it's at like the start of the ban wave, like it's like the day before the ban wave or something, or like in that same time period as a ban wave.
One of the things that
I don't
I
think
like that
Developers
Valve has been.
communicate when they ban people.
See, Blizzard is so weird, right? Because they don't whenever a ban wave happens, it's not them doing it. Or not that they're the ones. Sorry, they're not the ones communicating that the ban wave is happening.
It's
There's
a third party.
a third party
Yeah.
called Overwatch PD that has to do it for them. And like they find this information because they're like, oh shit, like Blizzard did this, and we're the only ones that know, and we're the ones that had to tell people, but like Blizzard themselves just refuses to not say anything about it.
I mean, they shouldn't, to be honest.
I mean, but the thing is that people know anyway, though. That's the thing. Like the thing is that Blizzard doesn't make make stuff public. You already have the ban wave that's like published, and like I don't know where exactly it's published, but it is published somewhere because these third parties know.
It's in the API when they see how many accounts get banned, but it's not like they really don't want to be like, oh yeah, cheat makers, we banned, like there's a ban wave, so you guys got to start doing something. Really.
I mean, they don't even have to
That's fair.
specify that it was for cheaters or whatnot. They just need to say that a ban wave happened.
Yeah.
Hold on, I want you guys to quickly look at this Reddit post that I'm putting up in our chat, because this is from a person we all know very well. But it's very interesting and it's hilarious to read, and it just shows community interaction with Blizzard at its finest.
Oh, I remember.
Just like
Oh wait, yeah.
yeah, you remember this?
Yeah.
Basically, it's a Reddit post saying like, oh, Jeff Kaplan, who is the current vice president for Blizzard, used to be an active World of Warcraft player, right? Like he's mentioned this multiple times before in like BlizzCon and all his like, whenever he talks about Blizzard itself, he's like, oh, the first game that I played was like WoW, and I really love WoW, and I want to stay on WoW, and I want to keep playing WoW kind of deal. And then he sends that email, and I think it just shows the frustration it is. And then there's also an interview that Jeff Kaplan recently did where he's just like, he says that the community backlash towards like Overwatch 2 and like any change in general is kind of like young people in like high school or middle school, where like there's a boy, and I'm just doing the standard generic example, right? There's a boy and a girl, and one has a crush on the other. So the person who has a crush punches the other like in the arm and is like, hey, I want some attention kind of deal. It's like that kind of like stereotype is what I'm trying to get at.
Sorry, go ahead.
He equated the community as like the people who has a crush on the game, and that they're punching the game to show their passion for the game. And I thought it was really funny. It's like his analogy, it makes perfect sense, right? Because like my last 10-15 minutes rant on Blizzard was literally me just being like, Blizzard, you dog shit company, please fucking do something. Is literally me saying, I love your game a lot. I would humbly request you to please help me understand what you want from the game, or like what your thought process is. I want to know how you're thinking because I love this game as much as you do.
See, that's one thing that Blizzard is really bad about, because Blizzard itself is still very archaic in a lot of ways that they handle things, right? So like, for example, if we really take a look at like a lot of other companies that do like competitive games, Riot, big one, Rainbow Six, and Apex, right? Three different games. each of them have one thing in common. They have a roadmap for the year. Now, Blizzard refuses to do that for some reason, and I don't know why. Because when you take a look at a game like Valorant, right? We know exactly when we're getting stuff, right? We're getting an update every 2 weeks, we're getting a new character every 2 months, and we're getting a new map every 6 months, right? That's what they've told us. Now, with Blizzard, they never had anything like that, right? Even with characters, we just assumed that we were getting characters every single 4 months because that's when they started doing it, and sometimes it was on the mark, sometimes it was a little bit off the mark, but we never know when we're actually getting stuff. And that was the same thing with updates too. Sometimes updates would take like a month, sometimes it would take like 3 weeks, sometimes they would take like 6 weeks, right? We just got stuff as stuff came along. And so when you leave the community in the dark like this, you're just breeding the frustration because they never know what to expect and they don't know what you're thinking, which like Blizzard just I don't know how Blizzard has not figured this out yet, but it's crazy to me that they still don't have like a way to actually communicate the changes that they want to make. Sometimes they'll make a forum post, and the forum post offers a little bit of like a decent amount of insight. A little bit is unfair, but sometimes the forum post
they give a sentence, right? They actually just give a sentence in their patch notes.
The thing is that the forum
they're
post
being like, hey man, so Reinhardt, being the character that he is, feels like he's lacking in mobility. So instead, we gave him more damage. So what were you thinking with that?
There's just no, one we don't know what they're thinking, and that's why a lot of stuff seems so out of left field. But also, it's not consistent at all, right? Like we don't like sometimes there's a forum post, sometimes there isn't. Most of the time, there isn't a forum post to explain what they're thinking, right?
It's just an experimental patch.
Yeah, like the
patch notes.
The experimental patch comes out and they're like, yeah, we raised the damage. Okay, but like, what were you actually trying to accomplish with this damage change, right? Reinhardt getting 10 more damage doesn't really affect his ability to actually push up and take space. You gave Orisa a good ability to take space. Do I think that buff was stupid? Yeah, that buff was beyond stupid. It makes no sense. Why does Orisa get the treatment that she does to take space and all the other tanks are still left in a shitty space? Are they going to explain it? No, they're not. Is there any rhyme or reason? No, there isn't. They're just going to do stuff and expect you to actually like understand what they want, and then that's it. That's literally just it. There's no schedule. There's no roadmap. They're just like, you're just gonna fucking accept what we're taking, and if you don't like it, well, maybe we'll change it. We'll change in the future. We'll see. That was my round.
Yeah, I understand. It was just
I must leave now.
Juan has just informed us that he must leave, and so now we have to do a whole bunch of technical stuff.
No, I'll just turn off my camera and deafen.
Like in the viewer of your camera? No.
Oh, never mind. Do I just disconnect my camera?
Just disconnect.
Yeah, what do we do?
Yeah, just disconnect your camera real quick.
See if this is the camera. Nope. Keyboard. Nope. Mouse.
Nope. Monitor.
No, but yeah, I know what. Oh, I mean, well, I guess it's just
doesn't matter.
But what are your thoughts about on Blizzard and how they actually interact with the community, Ryan? I think we've heard a lot from you on this.
I think you guys kind of summed it up perfectly.
It's infuriating in the worst ways.
They're clearly listening to what we're saying, but there are some times where they either don't really say anything back, or if they
just
do
gonna put a hoodie up on it. Yeah, he is.
Nice. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
It's like their response to it is like, oh yeah, no, we get that, but we don't want to do that, or at least we don't want to do that.
That's
really it. It's like when people were like very staunchly asking for hero bans, and they were like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. It's like very too samey to what other games are doing. So, and then like the week after, they're like, here are hero pools, which is innovating. Like it's innovating on hero bans, and it's a new system, and we're confident it will be a better fit for the game. It was not a better fit for the game. In fact, it was a waste. It was terrible.
Here's one thing that I think Blizzard can adapt from Riot back in the day. Back in the day, Riot, in order for the free-to-play heroes for the week, they would actually put out a poll on their own forum page and be like, hey guys, vote on it. Blast it across all social media. People would vote on it, and then they would pick like the top few, and then they'd put like half of it would be the ones that like by popular choice, and then the other half would be stuff that they decided based on like an RNG. I think Blizzard can do that with Overwatch and Hero Bands, where they're like, hey, which thing are we gonna go for in
Hero
terms
pools,
of
you mean?
yeah, in terms of hero pools, like, hey, which ones do you not want to see this week? And like, sure, there's going to be some which is going to be like expended, like almost everyone's going to be like, oh my god, hell's no, I don't want to see Brig ever again, or like, I don't want to see Orisa, or I don't want to see Sigma, or I don't want to see like a Doomfist, Sombra, stuff like that, and like you'd vote on it like across the whole hero pool, and then sure, it's going to make the meta stable, but like if it's a constant vote, then they'll be like, okay, wait, if this is getting constantly banned, maybe we need to take a look at the character itself and see how we can maybe like change this character.
I do
So-
like the effort that they do go, like at least the Rush team with the videos, like the dev videos. That
Yeah, I
come
mean,
every so often before
the-
they like prior to like a big change that they're making to the game.
those are good. Yeah, I'll give Blizzard credit for that. But
Also the workshop.
Mhm.
yeah,
I
that
think
too.
the workshop was a
How
very
much
good
they've
step.
added and changed in like recent times.
The thing is that Blizzard knows how to foster a community, but they don't know how to actually work with the community. You know, like they know how to build a community very well, but when it comes to actually interacting with them, sometimes it's like, yeah, our community exists, but like we talked about this with Riot before, and how like we talk like Riot like does seem to know best, right? But the thing is that Blizzard acts like they seem to know best, and they're not willing to actually like be flexible on it, because with the counter example of Riot, when Riot like thinks that like they might actually be wrong on something, they will admit fault to it, or they will try to like take a different perspective on things. But Blizzard, on the other hand, is often like, our community is saying one thing, but we think another thing. Are we going to listen to the community? No, I think the thing that we think is the best. That's really it. Like, there's no other way to actually think about it. Like that's just how Blizzard is when they actually like try to interact with the community.
I don't know. I feel like Blizzard, the community, and Blizzard itself are speaking two different languages, and there's just like a
Exactly.
a disconnect that's happening whenever it comes to community interactions.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But like, to me, one of the biggest changes I wanna see see, the thing is that I say this, but like Blizzard isn't only producing Overwatch, they're producing other games, so we can see their behavior from other games. But one thing I want to see with Blizzard with Overwatch 2 when they release that is actually having some sort of like roadmap for how we expect things in the future, right? Because right now this doesn't exist for any of their other games, so we can't really tell if this is like a philosophy that they're actually willing to adapt. But it's so good for actually like letting your community know when to expect things, and when you're constantly open about the things that you're looking to add, it allows you to work with the community and see like what their thoughts are on it before you actually push it into the game. And like sometimes stuff like Brig happened, you could have probably avoided a disaster like Brig happening the way it did, right? But like probably actually, I say probably, but like the chances are at least higher a little bit, right? Like Riot, like sorry, go ahead.
Probably is also a good term, because historically, like with the PTR updates before experimental, how they push out like bounce changes, it's like, hey, give us your feedback, and people are like, oh, this X change is not so good, Y change has potential if you just like tweak the numbers here, and Z change, what's the point of this? And then Blizzard's just like, yeah, and they ship out the same exact change.
Because they're just looking to do bug fixes on
they,
PTR, and it's so
like,
stupid.
Like with some experimentals that they've done, like since they add the system, they did take in feedback, like with the 132 change, where they added a third DPS and removed one tank from each team.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like the series of changes in an attempt to rework Moira.
Right.
They were paying very close attention to feedback on that.
Yeah.
But I think
for the most part, it's just they put something up.
Here's one thing though.
Yeah.
Here's one thing though. The Overwatch community was persistent, and 2CP is finally getting out of this god awful fucking game. That game mode is dog shit. It's valuable in like high level competitive play, but my god, do I not want to see it in my ranked
The-
games ever fucking again.
Yeah,
The-
for like
the
I'm
thing is-
99%
glad they removed
for
Paris.
99%
I'm
of
glad
the
they removed
community.
Horizon Lunar Colony. They needed to remove all the others.
The thing
Like
is,
99%
I don't mind it in
didn't care
tournaments,
about
but I
USDP.
fucking hate it in competitive and ladder.
the thing is about Blizzard is that in the
It took
end,
them 4 years, by the way.
Yeah,
4 years to listen to the community on that.
that's a good point. In the end, Blizzard does actually kind of listen to like a lot of
Nice.
things. Yeah, they do
5
listen.
years.
They do listen. Like for on a lot of things, like they do. But the issue is that you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until they finally cave in, right? For let's just say, for example, 222. How long were people asking for 222 because they wanted some structure in their game? They were tired of getting 4 to 5 DPS every single goddamn game. And then what do you call it? Goats finally happened, and Ghosts not only fixed the 222 solution, but also gave people what they were asking for a while, right? And so, sorry, I said 222, the whole no DPS solution or issue. But you know they finally added 222, but that's because they were literally on the edge, right? Like like that's
Viewership was tanking
they needed
for their
yeah
for
they
the competitive scene.
they
People were
needed
not
to do
motivated
that.
to play the
But-
game.
yeah, and
There were so many factors. Like big streamers were quitting the game because of goats.
the thing
And I
is
literally mean big streamers. Like Raxu was a really big one. Aimbot Calvin was a really big one.
and
Like,
the
who
thing
else?
is
Like Defran, I'm
You-
pretty
you
sure.
had- you had one of the top players in the Overwatch League, Sinatra, straight up quit.
yeah the thing
I mean,
is
he quit because
Overwatch-
of 222.
but the
He quit because of 222,
well,
not because of
it was
goats.
it wasn't 222 itself, but it was the queue times for like playing ranked. But either way, that's
That's another thing
semantics.
that they
Yeah.
have been like trying to listen to the community on, but they're like not sure how to like respond to it. Is how to deal with queue times, and they've been
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, but those are
Sinatra explicitly said this in an interview. He said that 222 is what killed the game for me because I wanted it to be like I wanted ladder to be a place where we could literally pick anything and kind of counter pick and whatever. So if let's say my Reinhardt's not doing well, we could ask for a swap and like a better Reinhardt player could take over, or we could play a different tank and we can run like different lineups with like complete like there's more iterations with that than with 222, and that's what killed the game for him.
well.
It wasn't as exciting.
The thing is, so what do you call it? But the point that I'm trying to get at is that Blizzard like they're just so stuck in their ways about so many different things. It does so much more harm than good, right? And I just wish that all they did was say, "This is the reason we don't want to do this," not we don't think that this is best for the game because this game isn't X game, right? Like, oh, this game is not League of Legends, so we don't want hero bans because hero bans works out for League of Legends, but it doesn't work for Overwatch, right? That's so annoying to me, right? If you have a specific,
yeah, that's just weird.
if you have an actual reason, then say it, right? If you don't want hero bans because you don't think that there aren't enough characters in the game, especially characters that have some sort of overlap to make up for the characters that are banned, say that. That's a viable reason. Don't give me some dumb BS that you think that, oh, like we don't need to do what other games are doing. That's stupid.
Right, and I think there's also like a lot of merit to that in the sense that like Blizzard, when they do come out with just patch notes in general and asking for community feedback with experimental and whatnot, and we've already been over this, but like their reasoning to solve a problem, and this is something that we talked about last week too. By the way, that episode's available on YouTube now, so subscribe to the IT YouTube channel. So like with that, it was very important for them to kind of explain why they actually wanted to do what they did, right? Like instead of we think that this makes this hero better by doing this thing, or like they address a problem and everyone's like, yeah, that's a problem, and they go, the solution though is it's like giving CPR for a foot injury, you know? It's like giving CPR for a sprained ankle and expecting it to work, and that's what Blizzard's trying to do. And it's just so funny to think of it. That's why every time I read the patch notes, I get a kick out of it. At this point, like after 5 years of investing in this damn game,
Well,
it's just like I love the game to
we're
bits.
talking-
Don't get me wrong; it's a fun fucking game. But my god, is it fucking hilarious when looking at like the stuff the devs say and the actions that they're doing.
yeah.
I mean that's just the Overwatch team. I think the WoW team is kind of. Well, I can't. Really
I think
say
the WoW team is a lot better.
They're a lot better, but like in some ways, at least with the recent Blizz Online, when Ian came out and we got to see him live from his microwave on the Death Star discuss like the upcoming 9.1 patch, they were very, very vague about like all the things that are coming in and what they're changing and whatnot. And
with the new
it's
expansion, right? Like it's the
with
next step in
expansion and the things that they're
Shadowlands.
talking about, it's like they sound these sound really cool and awesome, and I cannot like wait to get to play these things. It's like, can I see these things? And they're like, yeah, we don't have any images at all. No.
Yeah, because it's probably in the
nothing
development phase. It's kind of what they did for Overwatch 2, didn't they?
It's at least with Overwatch 2, they actually showed things, but like
Yeah.
with
No.
like,
Here's the
one,
thing,
they
right?
didn't show
Like
anything. It was just text. It was just
like
a
the
pop-
initial announcement of Overwatch 2. I mean, like the very first one. It's similar to what they did with WoW, where they just said, "Hey, there's big things coming out. We're doing big things. PvE, this, that." They even had a cinematic, and I'll tell you one thing that they do that gets people hyped up about Overwatch at BlizzCon every year. They release one of the best cinematics. Like the Overwatch team releases one of
Blizzard
the
in general
best
releases
cinematics.
some of the best cinematics in the
The thing
gaming
is,
industry.
This is
Exactly.
This has something that I kind of brought up before, but like Blizzard is very good at fostering community, and it's a lot of that has to do with the amount of what do you call it? I don't want to say content, but
It's hype
more,
they generate. They
it's
generate
not-
a lot of hype around.
It's
content,
not. It's not even
around their own content.
It's
right?
not
Like
even
their
hype.
Expansions and whatnot.
It's not hype, but it's a lot more to do with the fact that they have stuff for casual people to. So it's not in-game content, but I guess substance is the right word. I don't know, but engagement. There's a lot that keeps casual people still involved, right? Because even if people aren't playing Overwatch anymore, they're still involved in like, or they're still interested in like the cinematics, like the art, like all that stuff, like Overwatch 2, like the PvE stuff. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that for like too, right? And they're very good at actually building a community, but it's just the whole interaction portion of it. It's just so backwards. Or
that's what I'm getting at. It's like they're not giving like any concrete details or anything. It's like, I get it. It's like it's still in the development phase, but they could at least tell us something. Like give us a rough estimate. It's like when we can expect more details on. They didn't tell us anything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They just told us like, okay, like there are gonna be new enemies. There's gonna be an entire new zone. The mall is gonna be friendlier. And it's like, cool. Anything?
Can we seize anything? No, you can't.
No.
Yeah.
But please, and like someone asks like, please, and they go like, no. And someone asks like, pretty please with a cherry on top.
It is literally the steamed hams meme, but it's Blizz Online for WoW.
It reminds me of Monty Python, the Knights of Ni, and that's all they say. It's like, it's just hilarious, you know. But yeah, I think that concludes our mold for today. Mainly because it's so long. There's so much we could talk about, but I don't want to get myself into the mindset of molding so hard that I can't recover from it by tomorrow. I need my break from mold. So here's what all of you can do that's watching in the future as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look out for the Esports Rundown, which dives into the esports scene a lot more. They do analysis on matches, on players, current events, affairs, etc. Awesome is one of the hosts on the show, so you can talk a little bit more about it if you want to.
That's going to be Sundays at 7 p.m. So be sure to tune in every other week. So this week is a Mallcast, as you know, you just saw. Next week will be the Esports Rundown. We talked about Astra a little bit today, but that's what do you call it? That fits a lot more into the esports realm. So we're going to be going a lot more in depth on that if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of League of Legends, Apex, and other content. Anything really esports related, any sort of big news, we'll be covering that.
Be sure to look out on our Twitter as well as our Discord on any community events that might be happening, because we do host those. Those are monthly for community events, and they're really fun. We just did an Overwatch one. This episode, in case you missed it, is already up on YouTube. If you're watching from YouTube, hello, please subscribe. We appreciate it. Share this with as many people as you can if you do enjoy the Monthcast and the Esports Rundown, or anything on the Illinois Tech page.
Yeah, my monitor blacked out, so yeah.
Are we still live?
Yeah,
That's
we
the
are.
question.
We are.
Okay.
We are.
So without the face cams, we're just gonna keep rolling with it. I hope everybody has a good night, and hopefully everybody had a good weekend up till now. Whatever time of the day it is, had a good day, night, whatever. I hope you guys enjoyed the Mallcast. If you do, please be sure to let us know on our social medias, Discord, etc., etc. And yeah, I hope you guys. We'll see you in the next Mallcast episode where we'll malt about a completely new thing because we have infinite malt. Peace out.
All right. Thank
See
you.
ya.